Welcome to Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. My name is Amber Ireland, and I'm here with my co-host, Jill Bucaro. Let's get started.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Guided by Third Wheel. Today, I think is a little bit of a funny and amusing story, how we came to what we were going to talk about. So 2 podcasts ago, in the podcast about changes, Amber and I were kind of talking, Amber pulled the card, we're talking about, change and especially why does it feel hard? We talked a little bit about leveling up, and I said, man, the discomfort of leveling up, we should do a podcast about that. Yeah. And we're like, oh, yeah, great. And we ended the podcast. And that was probably from today when we're recording this podcast. That was probably 5 or 6 weeks ago. Yeah. It was a long time ago. And then today, Amber and I are just chit-chatting. And Amber's telling me about this new book that she's reading that is literally about the discomfort of leveling up. Mm-hmm. And then we're like, well, what should we talk about today? And I'm like, we could talk about that book, kind of. And then I was like, what is that thing that we said we were going to talk about in the podcast we just dropped? And we turned it on and we listened to the last minute, and literally verbatim, I said we should talk about the discomfort of leveling up. So I think the universe is telling us today, 'tis the season, 'tis the time to talk about the discomfort of leveling up.
Yeah.
So Amber, let us in on your thought process. You've been thinking about leveling up, it seems like. Tell us kind of where you're at.
So, well, the book, first off, I haven't read it yet. I literally just received it from Amazon on my doorstep yesterday. But I've been listening to, they have a podcast, and it's called The Big Leap. And I wish I could tell you the author of it. His first name is Gay. That's all I know.
Maybe we'll link it or something.
Yeah, well, and also, after I read it, if it's, super great, which I'm assuming it'll be super great for me, but I'll definitely share it. But, so I ordered this book because over the last week or so, I've kind of felt like I felt kind of stagnant, right? I'm pretty good at knowing what I want, being able to sit in that space and kind of manifesting, right?
Sure.
And recently, I'm like, I've been sitting in this space a really long time, and I don't feel like I'm getting any closer to it. And so what is happening? What is blocking me from this? And it doesn't feel like it needs to shift or change or anything like that. And I also have this, I don't know if any of you have experienced this, but this anticipation that I know something is about to happen, but I don't know what it is.
Oh, yeah. I think most of us who are intuitive get that vibe.
Right. Mm-hmm. And so, sitting in the space of anticipation, not getting literally any hits, it is radio silent over here. I cannot figure out what's about to happen. And then my brain goes to, well, certainly something bad has to happen, right? Yeah. Something bad has to happen in order for this change to come.
Yeah.
And I didn't really even, that is always my thought process. Okay, well, I'm gonna have the tower moment, and then I know after I have the tower moment, things will be better, right?
You have to have a tower to have change.
Right. And it was just, I was meeting with my mentor, and I was like, I don't know what's happening, and I just feel stuck.
Sure.
And the first piece of advice was, be still. Be still. Why are you trying to do everything? Just be still, right? Which I'm like, that is hard. I will try. And then it was, why does it have to be bad?
Right.
Why does it have to be bad for you to level up?
Why does there have to be a tower moment? Why can't you just climb the stairs to the next level?
Right. And are you creating the tower moments so you can get to the change because that's all you've known?
Yes. And that kind of goes back to what we were just talking about in the change episode. So 2 episodes ago from this, but I was just listening to it because it just dropped right before we recorded this. And it's I think it is very hard for us, to accept that good things can come without all the drama. That we can make pivots, we can do changes, not that can happen without carnage in its wake. You know what I mean? Right. And we were just talking about this before the podcast, and I was like, shit, I think the same way you think. I think man, I can only go to another job, I can only leave a relationship, I can only do something different if there's some burning of a bridge on my way there.
Right.
And why is that? we talked all about sometimes changes are handed to us, right?
Mhm.
Because we're not ready and we're not anticipating them. So it does make sense that we have the tower moments, the carnage then.
Mhm.
But why, if we can say that, like, why are you and I still stuck in this pattern of thinking that still needs to
Right.
happen?
Right. We've gotten to a place where we're better connected with like our own feelings and our intuition and all these things. And like you have this knowing, like, oh, a change is coming and you're excited about it. But it's
Sure.
like the whole back of your head is like, well, I wonder what I'm going to have to lose to have this change. And not to say, I do think every time that you change in your life, right, it's change. So some things are going to have to fall away. Some things are going to have
Yes.
to, end in order to make space for the change, right? But like, why does it have to be so drastic? Like, why do I always anticipate my worst fears or have to happen in order for me to move through into like a better place? It's something definitely that I'm unpacking right now, but I just wonder, like, do other people feel that way?
I mean, I definitely feel that way. And I think a piece of it for me, because I have a couple changes, potentially brewing in my life at the moment. And I can be a bit of a self-sabotager, for sure. Or I find myself sabotaging old relationships or old connections to make way for the new, right? As opposed to just having like a thoughtful conversation, like with my work, with the person, I'm dating, with my friends, to be like, hey, here's a change I'm implementing. Just kind of talking about it. Like I find myself like sabotaging the old, right? To like justify the new.
Right.
Does that make sense?
Right.
And I think for me, I feel a lot of guilt about leveling up. I feel like
Yep.
a lot of just like, am I leaving people behind? Am I not being true to the Jill that existed 2 years ago?
Yeah.
Right? Am I letting things like go to shit? Am I throwing things away that I worked really hard for? Like I feel a lot of guilt and a lot of responsibility. Not like responsibility in a good way, like responsibility in a maladaptive way, right? That I like have this weird belief that like people need me, to like manage and control the things that I'm trying to leave behind. And I think that's part of it for me is like, do I pick, sabotage till finally people are like, get the fuck out and go. You know what I
Right.
mean? So I don't have to be the one that says, hey, I'm moving on to something new.
Right.
Does that make sense? I feel like a lot of guilt always about leveling up. And like I'm leaving people or places or things behind.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I feel guilty in a way, and I feel like it's that attachment to like you said, the Amber of 2 years ago, the Amber of 10 years ago, the
Yes.
Amber of 20 years ago, being attached to that and almost bringing forward old versions of myself that already have leveled up,
Yeah.
right? And being like, but no, this is part of me. This over here is still part of me. And like, yes, it's a part of my journey, but it's not a part of my now. And so why do I have to hold on to it? Because if I keep it as a part of my now, of course I can't change easily.
Right. And I think too, it's easier and probably just like less stressful for me to think about it in terms of like jobs and careers, right? Because if I were to like open up like the relationship can of worms, like I would go crazy right now. But like thinking about it in terms of jobs and careers, like in theory, we should expect like some natural progression, right? In our career that we would like do a job, learn some skills, try a new job, try some new skills, right? And continue to build on that and kind of like progress forward. But I always get so worried like, oh my gosh, well, the job I have now was 3 years ago Jill's dream job. Why would I give it up? Why would I give it up?
Yes.
And then I think, then my ego gets into it, right? And it's like, well, if I leave, what if it falls apart? What if the level of service isn't as good as it was? What if the clients aren't served the way that I want them to be served? And I think it's particularly hard for me because I've built my career around building programs, right? So I have like this over attachment, I think, to the work that I do because I was, I built it a lot of times. But then what I know to be true and what I've seen happen with other people who aren't me is that sticking around in a place that you're too big for or that you're ready to move on from destroys it, right?
Yep.
We see that happen all the time with like CEOs of agencies or like leaders, and it's like they've done what they needed to do, and it was beautiful and it was amazing, and they stayed and they tried to over control and over correct and over refine, and all of a sudden they've ruined what they've built, right? And I am so quick to point out when other people are doing that, but why do I live in the delusion that if I leave everything will get worse, when really probably it will get better.
Right. It's that, choking out the growth, right?
Yes.
You're as a leader, sometimes we are tasked to grow things, to help give people opportunities for them to grow in their careers as well. And remembering that we're all part of that web, right? I touch so many people and they touch so many people and they touch so many people. And remembering that, like, I can't control that whole arm. I really should just be working with the people that are closest to me and helping them, and then getting the fuck out of the way so that they can have growth. Because if I stifle their growth, then what does it stifle further down that line?
Exactly.
What can't they do for all of these people who could receive all of these opportunities because of this business term downline? Of energy.
Yes. Thinking about like your like growth, and I'm thinking like a garden almost like as this analogy, but like as you continue to grow and grow and grow, you're going to cast more shade, right? And soon are you just going to be like, is your shadow going to be killing everything around you because you're in the wrong fucking garden, right? Like you need to move to a different space where like you are casting this big shadow, but it's not choking out other people's growth and ability, to like catch the sun or do whatever we want to say in this analogy. And are you stifling people from being able to reach their potential, right? Because again, going back to the other podcast, you're being so resistant to the change that the universe is telling you like, hey, this is what's next. Look at this opportunity. And your unwillingness to go is not only making you miserable on the inside, it's fucking with everybody around you too.
Right. And what old stories are keeping you from going when you know that you should be going, right? Like what is the barrier for you to not level up?
Why aren't you letting go? You talk about all the time, Amber, and I think it's a good analogy to bring up again. We are in theory like in this boat, right, on a river, and we need to go with the current. Certainly we have opportunities where we like need to stick an oar in here and there, right, to like navigate around a big rock or to like, hit the current or whatever. But not going with the change, not leveling up, to me is the same as like sticking our oar down in the creek bed, grabbing onto a rock, and then all of that turmoil we're causing by not going with the flow is fucking up everything around us.
Right. All the other people on the river are trying to get
They're
out
like
of your
running
way.
into you. They're like, what are you doing? You're like spinning around in the middle of this river here, fucking everything up. But what is causing that fear? Right. That has you clinging to the edge, clinging to a rock, sticking your oar down in there.
Yeah.
And I think what's causing that fear is the old stories.
Right.
Why are you trying to control something that cannot be controlled? Why are you not letting yourself get into the groove of like the change and the dynamic pace of the universe and what's happening around you?
Yeah. And I think that goes back to what you kind of talked about. I know for me it's similar. It's always around relationship. It's always around what are people going to think of me if I do this now and I didn't bring them along with me, right? Yes. Not even a matter of like I had to like cut off a relationship or end something, but I just didn't bring you along. Or at the time that we were super close, I didn't have this. So shouldn't I be like calling you on the phone from 10 years ago and being like, hey, I got this additional abundance or I have this new whatever, and don't you want to come over, right? Which sounds ridiculous because why would you do that? Like that doesn't even make sense. But those are the stories, right? Those are the stories that are like, you should be taking care of everyone if you have more.
Right. Well, and I think it's those stories I think we're particularly told as women. Don't be selfish. Don't put every other person's needs and wants above your needs and wants, right? Yeah, I think I've heard, my whole life I've heard like, don't be greedy, don't be selfish. Think about your brother. Think about this. Think about that. You know, those are
Right.
just the stories we're told. And I think we take some of those stories that probably like were fair stories and made sense when you're like, you know, a 6-year-old child, and we like apply them in the adult world, right?
When you're 6 and you have 2 popsicles.
Right,
like-
exactly. Or when, you know, you're 6 and like you and your brother are at the park and your mom has to run back to the car and she's like, watch your brother, right? She didn't mean like, hey, Jill, you have to watch every goddamn adult in your periphery till the day you fucking die. Like they'll
Right.
actually be, they can actually make it at the park on their own. Like they don't need you, but like thanks for being there. You know, truly. But I think
Yeah.
we take some of these old stories and we're applying them out of context.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a huge one for me. I'm the oldest, you know, in my family, an oldest girl, right? Which is like a whole nother thing. And most of my like cousins are way younger than me. And it's just like there was always this narrative of like you kind of have to like mother hen, right? And like make sure everybody's okay. And I kind of have this pathologic need to like make sure everybody's okay. But I think I'm so busy making sure everybody's okay, I'm not making sure I'm okay, and I'm not okay, which is really fucking everybody up anyway.
Right.
I'm, you know, sabotaging my own kind of like compulsive actions anyway.
Well, and your ability to go further in your life to have the things that you want, because if you've got to drag along all this like dead weight with you everywhere you go, is going to make it so much harder to get to the places that you want or get to the things that you want in your life that you know are already yours. But it's like, why can't I have this? Well, it's because, you know, you're trying to drag along 300 people from your past.
Right. That probably don't even want to fucking come with you.
No, it's just the energy of them. It's the energy of those relationships that you're like trying to bring with you into this new space. And it's like, but why? Like I can say it out loud and I know it's ridiculous. And I also, if I sat down and thought about it, that would be the narrative that was running through my head. Like you have all of this baggage that you have to bring. And how the fuck are you going to have that if you've got all this baggage?
Exactly. Yeah. I think I feel the same way. Like, and that has been a theme in my life that I spend so much time being concerned about everyone around me that I never take time to be concerned about myself.
Right.
And one thing, and this is like a Jillism, and I've probably said it on here before, but one thing I tell people and advice I give people and that I try to give myself is at the end of the day, when push comes to shove, when it all boils down, nobody gives a fuck about you but you.
Right.
So if you do not take the time to give a fuck about you,
Right.
then nobody else is going to.
Right.
And then you're going to have your whole life with no one giving a fuck about you
Mm-hmm.
because you were supposed to do that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's a big piece of leveling up.
Mm-hmm.
Too. I mean, I think we can level up, and when relationships do have to end, or, you know, we do leave a job, or we say like, hey, this friend group is no longer serving me, right? Or the way that I engage with this social group just doesn't feel healthy for me anymore. I think there's a way to do that kindly, right, to people. And I think that's the hard part, and kind of brings us back to what we were talking about at the beginning. Like, how do I say, hey, this isn't working for me without sabotaging, without making it fiery, without making it a tower, and move forward. And that's the hard part, you know? Easier said than done.
Daggone. No, I mean, clearly we do not have all the answers to how to easily level up, but I think that if you've been going through life and your levels up have come from these fiery moments, the next level up might be, I don't have to have a fiery moment.
Right. Don't ask me how to do it, because I haven't figured it out
Yeah,
yet.
I'm working on it. I'm working on it.
Hopefully
because-
Amber can do it for us and we can watch and see.
Right. To some degree, I think I've implemented some things to where I have been able to level up without the fiery moment. It's just really come to my attention that I expect it to happen. 100% I expect that I'm going to have some major fallout to have what I want. And I anticipate it and I'm waiting for it. And because that's what I'm focused on is, oh my God, what is this fiery moment going to be? Why? God, I hope I don't like lose another relationship or lose another person in my life or lose all my money or lose all of these things. And really probably what I need to lose is this fucking old story
that I have to lose something.
Yes. You know, like, yes, something has to make way. Like, something has to get out of the way for me to have what I want. Because clearly that's why I don't have it yet. Because I've got something that's, like, taking up that space. why can't I just let go of the old story instead of, expecting that like something tragic and terrible is going to happen in my life, opposed to like, it would feel real fucking good to let go of that old story.
Right. God, I know. I hear that. I'm thinking two things. For some reason, like, this is like resonating with me or like relating to me to like honesty, right? Which is like, I've been on this journey of just like brutal honesty in my life the last couple of years, because the first part of it, I always was just like down to like bullshit and like, put on a little play or a show to make everybody feel comfortable, right? And this kind of feels like honesty to me, and like, what is our fear about being honest with the people that are important to us, right? Yeah. Why can't I just say like, man, I have this feeling deep down inside of me that it's time for something different, right? That something new is coming for me, right? Whether it's in the context of a relationship or a job or whatever. Like, why can't I just say that? Right.
Because what if that thing goes away?
Right.
What if that thing rejects you?
And I think that's an old story and an old fear, right? Whether it's our fear of confrontation, our fear of abandonment, right? Our fear of rejection, all of those wounds that I think are probably fairly common in the human experience. I'm also thinking about, this is like a little mini journey that I've just kind of started, is how can we release old stories when like our brains won't let us, right? Because I've done a lot of talk therapy. You've done a fair amount of talk therapy. And there are things, and we've talked about this on here too, that I know to be true in my brain, right? But I for some reason, I can't have them be true in my body. I can know, like, Jill, I know that I am lovable, right? But like my body's like, no, you're not, and like, how do I they're like, no, you're not, dumb. Like, how do I reconcile that? And I've been on this somatic yoga journey, which is like, basically somatic yoga apparently is like this way of doing yoga. It's like certain poses that's supposed to just like release like trauma and shit from your body that like maybe you can't talk out of your body. It's like doing body work to release it. And I'm thinking like, what are some potential things that we can do to try to help ourselves drop these old stories? Because you and I could sit here. We've literally done a whole ass podcast on old stories, right? Of the old stories that we've told ourselves and that we've tried to let go of, but we say it, but they just keep cropping up.
Yeah.
So how the fuck do we get them up out of our bodies?
This is going to be like a sad realization for us all, but I don't know that you're ever going to 100% resolve, right? But we can chip away at them. We can be like, this part of it I'm done with, right? But what we find is in those times where we're about to up level, where we're about to change, where, we start to know, like we got that little anxiety, like, ooh, something's about to happen here, right?
Yeah.
Those old stories get so fucking loud. It is like, you're like, why? I thought I dealt with that, and I thought I dealt with that, and I thought I dealt with that, and why is this coming back up? And it's because those old voices are there because there was a time where that made you safe.
Sure.
Right? And they're like, fuck, you're about to do something different. And they're like getting so loud because they're trying to maintain what they see as your sense of safety.
Your homeostasis,
and so
yep.
The thing that we have to remember is when those voices get so loud, that's a time to say, oh, something big must be coming for me.
Right.
And I at least know those old voices, right? I can recognize that that's what that is, opposed to like 15 years ago, Amber had no idea that the voice that was saying like you're a piece of shit wasn't true.
Right, exactly.
Right. So you can now see it, and you again, every time that you can move through it, you're chipping away at those pieces, and it's quicker to turn them off. But I don't think that they ever completely stop talking.
I wish they would stop talking.
Yeah.
But I guess they're just here to hang out with
but
me forever.
I think there probably were points in time where you didn't realize they were there and you thought that was true. And then you got to a place where you were like, okay, well, I know this isn't true, but I don't know how to shut you up. Like, it's still running in here, and it's just driving me crazy that like this is still happening, and I know it's not true and I can't feel it. And then we get to a place where it's like, I still hear you, but like we can have a quick 30-second conversation and be like, no.
Yes. Yes.
And, please go back into the hidey hole that you were in before.
Get up out of here.
And I'm not dealing, thank you for your service. Please go back behind the door.
Yes. And
right?
I'm not going to let you paralyze me. Yeah, I think you're right. You have the point where you don't even know the voices and stories are just old stories and old voices, right? Where you literally let them take over your life and your decision making. And then you have the points where they come and they paralyze you, like sometimes for a long time, right? Weeks, months, days. And then you kind of, get to this point where you're like, oh, hello, old friend. Like, you're a fucking nightmare and here you are again.
Right.
But to your point, like, I know who you are, what you're doing. Yeah, let me put you away and let me carry on and do what I know I need to do. And that is good, but it can feel discouraging, I think, when you're like, oh, perfect, back again.
Right.
But perhaps some of this baggage, it gets lighter, but maybe it's meant to just, be on the luggage cart with us for the journey this time around. Yeah.
And I do think that as we experience new things, we talk about leveling up and the change of leveling up, and sometimes the discomfort of leveling up, you're getting to a new place, right? And so you haven't experienced it before.
Right.
And so here come these old stories in a different way than you've ever experienced them because you're going to a different place.
Yes, your perspective is different.
Right. And so now, like, hopefully you've had enough conversation with your old stories that you're like, okay, I see you. And what new thing are you bringing up for me that has stood between me and this level? Because here's the thing, like, you can't deal with all of that at the first time that you realize that you have these old stories or this old mental chatter. Like, you can't deal with it all then because you're not ready.
Right.
And so also changing your perspective around the fact that, like, oh, I must be ready to do something different because now I'm having this new conversation with this. I'm having to look at it in a different way. I've talked about, this entire podcast and probably for years of my life with all kinds of people about the fact that of like unworthiness and feeling unworthy to have what it is that I want. Mm-hmm. And there are pieces of unworthiness that I have been able to push away and say, like, okay, I know that that's not true. I know that that's not true. That doesn't impact my daily life. Yet here I am again. Mm-hmm. And that is the story. Like, I know that that's the story that's coming up, but now I have to look at it in a completely different way.
Right. Because I'm in a new spot. I'm doing a new and different thing.
Right.
Yeah.
But that doesn't mean don't do the work, right? Like you talked about the somatic yoga, doing the therapy, doing the things. That doesn't mean don't do the work because, like, oh, why would I do this? Because it's never going to be completely gone. No, this is just you discovering all of the pieces that have led to this point for you. Right. And being able to kind of offload those so that, like to your point, the baggage gets lighter. When the baggage gets lighter, when I've created more space, then now I allow for things that I actually want to come in and occupy that space. I'm making a more conscious decision to have what I want in that space. And I'm making the conscious decision to clear out what I don't want. Mm-hmm.
What I have found in my life is the same things, the same shit will happen again and again until you work through it the right way.
Right.
Like, until you finally put it to bed. Mm-hmm. Like, you will have if you refuse to have the hard conversation, the opportunity for that hard conversation will keep coming over and over again. Maybe the same conversation with different people, but that same thing will come again and again and again until you finally drop it, right? Until you finally do it. And maybe that's just like, God or the universe's way of making you so fucking uncomfortable, right? That you finally do it. But that's something I found in my life. Like, sometimes I'm like, I feel like I am reliving the same nightmare over and over again because I haven't done it, right? I haven't addressed it. I haven't hit it like head on. And I think that's part of leveling up too, because sometimes like the universe is like presenting this opportunity but you're going to have to like slay that dragon before you get there. Right. I think that's, I don't know, one thing I think about a lot too. When I feel that kind of sense of deja vu, I see something I want, and then it's like, here is the same fucking battle that I have maneuvered around. I have,
Yeah.
flown over. I have burrowed underneath. I have done
Right.
everything
To avoid.
but face this battle head on. And here she is again.
Mm-hmm.
And probably that's tied in
Mm-hmm.
to the old stories. It's confronting some of those old stories. But the universe will give you, 14,000 opportunities
Right.
to fight that battle.
Well, and don't you feel like once you've done it once, it doesn't mean that you won't have to do that same thing again. It's less of a problem because I've already done it once. I just do.
Well, it doesn't even register on your radar as a problem.
Right. You're like, I already know how to fix that.
Yeah,
I'm not over here trying to like circumvent the
Yes.
solution to this problem.
Yes.
I already know the solution to this problem. I can just go ahead and move through the door.
That's part of the leveling up too, is like the universe is like, here's a couple of dragons you've refused to slay the last 10 years. Would you perhaps like to slay one,
Yeah.
But don't worry, because if you don't, they'll come back again next year. So they'll
Right.
be back.
Right. Yeah.
Oh, man. It's just hard. It's hard to be a human.
It is hard to be a human. I think about myself as, I'm Amber in this, human body that's, walking around with everyone else in their human body. And then I'm Amber, the soul. And energetically, there are all of these things that are already mine out here in the world. And mine, very loosely mine. They are attracted to my soul.
Sure.
And then there are all these like weird things that I put around me or I've allowed to be around me that keep me from that. And they're always coming to me. They're always attracted to me. But it's like when you have a magnet that's really strong to something else and you put something in between and the magnet is still connected on the other side of the thing, but I can't get it because I've got, the board in between it or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And I think about myself that way and I'm like, what is it? What needs to go away so that some more of these things can get to me that are already supposed to be with me? And then also when I think about that, I think about how, I'm not really different than anyone else. That, I was thinking about it the other day about the people in my life and how, when we talk about imposter syndrome, right? And I'm like, we are all performing in our meat suits, right? Like truly, like we're all just going around and performing in the best way that we can and we're being different versions of ourselves, and it's just like this game that we all play here in life, and we try to do things to make each other's lives better,
Make the world a better place.
Or, just to like move along our journey and learn the things that we need to learn and connect with the people that we need to connect with. But we're all just like, there is no difference.
No.
There's no difference. Our separation really is just my physical body that separates me.
Right. I think too, the more work that you do, it becomes more obvious, like, oh, this is what's between me and the magnet, right? This is what's between me and what I want. And it's just like, you have to do it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just hard. And
Or you don't. Here's the thing.
Or you don't do
There's
it.
times where I'm like, I see that thing and I'm not ready to attend to that thing. But I also know that what I want's over there. So if I'm willing to delay that because I don't want to do this, then that's cool. And also I can make the choice
to do it. And I think,
do it.
And we talk a lot about that too, and that's part of that, like being present and engaged, right? Because certainly, yes, I think most of the time now I am more present, I am more engaged, and I can say like, oh, that's the dragon I need to slay.
Mm-hmm.
Pretty obvious, right? I've seen this dragon before, right? And I have chose not to slay her the last couple of times. But to your point, to get to what I want, this needs to be slayed. But sometimes, you just say, I can't do it right now. Like, I don't have it in me. And that's okay.
No. Yeah.
That's okay. But that awareness piece is there. We all want a life where we're continuing to level up, I think.
Yeah.
I think that most of us, if not all of us, do not just want to stay stagnant, sitting in the same place with the same people. I think maybe some people think that's what they want, but they're just not tapping in. But the continuous leveling up and the continuous growth requires a lot of continuous work and a lot of continuous discomfort.
But it doesn't have, the other shoe doesn't have to drop for you to get what you want.
Right.
Yeah, I'm trying to work through that myself, and I'm trying to like figure out how is it that, how do we move through that fear of the other shoe has to drop before I can get there.
And how do we just like allow ourselves the grace to move on to the next thing without having to like justify the moving on with like craziness or ugliness or sabotaging.
This just kind of like pinged in. The other shoe having to drop is external normally, right? It's like something has to go away, like something external to me has to change. And what if it really is the thing that has to change if I could internally let go of something? Does that make the space? And am I not doing that instead of, being still with myself, right? I want to create something externally to allow for the change, to allow for the thing to come in, because that subconsciously is easier than doing the internal work. And like we said, space has to be made in order for there to be a change in your life to receive more, right? Space has to be made. I think when you get to a place where you're feeling more stuck, maybe it is not the external things that you're afraid are going to happen. It's more of like, how am I going to change things internally to make the space?
Yeah. Are you more willing to let your external life blow up rather than do the internal work to make space?
Right.
Ooh.
That might be the answer. Now I'm when I say things, sometimes I just roll back through my life and I'm like, yep. Like I check the boxes. I'm like, did it there? Did it there? Did it there? Did it there?
Yeah. I think it is fair to say that in order to level up, space must be made. Perhaps the more emotionally immature way to make space is to wreck something on the outside, to sabotage a relationship on the way out. We talked about this during Change too, to pick at your partner or your boss or your coworkers until they're like, get the fuck out of here. Jill, get up out of here. We are tired of you.
Right.
Is that emotionally easier than making the space internally? And I would argue that it is. Well, maybe you solved it, Amber.
Yeah, I don't know if I did.
But now you still got to do it.
But if anybody has any insight or suggestions, please comment on the podcast or, send us a message and be like, I have found that this, maybe you're at a different place in your journey and we can learn from you.
Yes. I would love a graceful level up. I feel like my level up is always like a fucking scramble, avalanche, claw my way. And I want just like a graceful ascension to the next level, please.
Right. I would rather I'm just going to say this out loud to manifest it, because I would rather have an internal dark night of the soul where I'm having to really pick away at things that I need to work on than to have my external life just blow the fuck up.
That's a brave statement.
Yeah, I can do the work. I've done the work. I know the work. And if I do the work, that is a solid foundation for me. That is me. Right?
I get to take that with you.
I get to take that with me. If shit blows up all around me, that's not mine. No, I don't get to walk away with that.
I hear you, but I think facing those internal demons.
Well, God,
in old stories, that's fucking scary.
They're mean.
So I get why people, and by people I mean me.
Yes.
blow up my external life, because fuck, that sounds hard.
Yeah.
I get it. I get it for sure. But yeah, like Amber said, our wise listeners, we came on the podcast today to just emotionally dump all over you because life is hard and we do not have all the answers, and probably none of us have the answers, but I would love some tips and tricks on leveling up.
And if anything resonated with you and you were like, oh, that was helpful, it would be great to hear that as well. Because I think, we figured some things out, right? I feel like I figured out a little bit, but I certainly do not have all the answers. So.
No, ma'am. See what the universe has for us. Pull us a card.
All right. This is called, did we do this one already? The Secrets of the Ancestors Oracle?
I don't think so.
How would you pronounce that?
Abuela?
I don't think that's abuela. It's Abiola.
Well, not abuela like grandma. Abuela.
Right. But maybe it's pronounced that way. Abuela Abrams is the creator of the deck. Let's take a deep breath together and set the intention that you will receive exactly what you need today from this podcast, from this card pull, from your leveling up experiences.
The dragons you will slay.
And if you've read The Big Leap, I'm about to start reading it. I'm finishing a different book, but if you've read it and you're like, that book is so great, Amber, you need to do it quickly, or you have any advice around it, I would love to hear that.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I've gotten this one before. This is called Creature of Air, and the Word Under Dispute. And this is a new deck for me, so I am just going to read what's in here for it, because I'm just learning this deck. So the declaration of this card is, I'm willing to take my time, which I think speaks a lot to leveling up and making sure that, you're willing to take your time and do what you need to do in order to move through things. But this says you are highly driven and running towards what you want in pursuit of your desires. The speed is evident, but where is the heart? If you are asking a yes or no question, the ancestor leaps forward with a slither to say no. Make a decision, speak your mind, and slow down and make aligned choices. Your passion and confidence are clear. So I think, when we look at this as far as leveling up, not being so stuck on moving through it so quickly, and slowing down and really feeling in to what you're doing, why you're doing it, and making sure that you're setting those solid foundations instead of like, let me just move through this as quick as I can. Let me circumvent the problem and go around it, under it, above it. Let me really just kind of feel into it and not be so fast, right? And slow down. We'll link this to, I think, probably on our Instagram. You can see this deck because I think this is a new deck. I really like it. It's kind of a mixture of tarot and oracle.
Oh, nice. Well, Godspeed, everybody. Yeah. Slay those dragons.
Yeah.
Level on up, and we'll catch you next time.
Bye. Thank you for listening to another episode of Guided by Third Wheel, the podcast. We would be honored if you would like, rate, and subscribe on your favorite podcast platform. Until next time, be well.